Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're diving into what I think is one of the most staggering societal paradoxes of our modern era. Okay, let's get right into it. We are staring down this colossal disconnect right now. It's honestly like looking at two completely isolated worlds existing right next to each other. On one side, we've got a whole generation of young people feeling completely locked out of their future. And on the flip side, an exploding new sector of the economy that is absolutely desperate for human talent. Today, we're going to look at the data, untangle this knot, and explore a really fascinating solution that's stepping up to bridge the gap.
But look, to understand the solution, we really have to grasp the terrifying scale of the problem. We are rapidly approaching a demographic and economic cliff edge, and the numbers are just shifting way faster than our traditional systems can handle. So let's look at exactly what's coming down the pipeline in Section 1, the approaching crisis.
1.25 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. A landmark report published today by Alan Milburn paints an incredibly stark picture. He warns that by the early 2030s, 1.25 million young people in the UK could be classified as NEET. If you're not familiar, that stands for not in education, employment, or training. To put that massive number into perspective, that is 1 in 6 young people. Literally 1 in 6, completely disconnected from the workforce and the educational pipeline. It's just an immense loss of potential.
Now, what's really interesting here is where the blame is actually placed. You know, it's so easy and unfortunately pretty common for society to just point fingers at the youth. But as Alan Milburn makes crystal clear, this is not a failure of young people, it is a failure of a system stuck in the past. This empathetic framing is absolutely crucial. It completely removes the stigma from the individuals and forces us to look objectively at the machinery of our society. The system itself is broken.
So, how did this happen? That brings us to Section 2, why entry jobs vanished. We need to look at why the traditional starting points for careers are suddenly just gone. The entry points, those bottom rungs of the career ladder that earlier generations always relied on, are simply disappearing.
The NEET crisis is very real, and it's ballooning because of 3 compounding rapid-fire factors. First, we're seeing a significant rise in mental ill health, which creates these invisible but very real barriers to traditional work environments. Second, AI is completely upending entry-level jobs. The basic tasks that used to act as a foot in the door, they're getting automated away. And third, the report points to a welfare system that inadvertently pushes young people toward benefits rather than incentivizing work. Combined, these factors are just aggressively destroying that entry-level ladder, pushing young people out before they even get a chance to start.
But here is where we pivot to the other side of our paradox. Because while one door is slamming shut, an absolute warehouse of doors has been flung wide open. Let's look at this dynamic in Section 3, the green economy paradox. This brilliantly illustrates the ultimate societal contradiction we're dealing with today. On the left, we've got millions of unengaged youth, completely lacking entry-level opportunities. But on the right, the UK green economy has thousands of unfilled jobs, and they are practically crying out for people. It's wild. We have a massive supply of potential energy and a massive demand for actual work, but they are completely 100% disconnected from one another.
Let's break down these macro-level needs so you can see just how desperate this demand actually is. The solar industry alone has stated it literally has to double its entire workforce by the year 2030 just to meet its targets. Meanwhile, the Warm Homes Plan needs thousands, and I mean thousands, not hundreds, of retrofit coordinators, assessors, advisors, and compliance administrators. The demand for skilled workers in these specific green sectors is absolutely skyrocketing. And if you want to ground this macro deficit in everyday reality, just consider this time frame, 6 months. Right now, EV, electric vehicle owners, are waiting up to 6 months just to get routine repairs done. Why? Simply because the UK is short thousands of qualified EV technicians. This isn't some abstract, distant future problem. This is a critical bottleneck happening right now in our daily lives.
Which brings us to the core thesis of this entire explainer. The jobs clearly exist. The young people clearly exist. But the system connecting them simply does not. The supply is there. The demand is there. But the bridge between these two isolated worlds is entirely missing.
A gap this massive obviously requires a very specific, intentional kind of bridge. Enter the missing puzzle piece that finally solves this paradox. As we turn to our final section, introducing the LELAIL solution.
So what is LELAIL? Well, it was built for exactly this moment. It's the missing bridge, connecting these unengaged young people to those massive opportunities in the green economy, the solar sector, and even AI-assisted roles. And it does this through interactive career taster courses. It's a purposeful system designed from the ground up to finally connect these two disconnected worlds.
How does it actually work for the learner? Well, it translates these features into immediate benefits that directly solve the anxieties of the NEET generation. The courses are voice-first and interactive, making them super accessible. They're available in over 100 languages, and they're completely self-paced. Oh, and I absolutely love this point. They are aggressively honest about the boring parts of a job, not just the rewarding parts. It's basically a try a career before you commit to training model. That kind of transparency builds serious trust and significantly lowers the barrier to entry.
What LELAIL essentially does is completely tear up the stressful, outdated rules of traditional job hunting. By offering these career tasters with absolutely no shame, no pressure, and zero waiting lists, it creates a totally barrier-free environment. It meets young people exactly where they are, you know? It gives them the agency to explore their future without that paralyzing fear of immediate failure or systemic rejection. So the absolutely crucial point here is this: no one left behind. That was never just a catchy tagline for LELAIL. It was always the foundational answer to this exact systemic crisis. You can actually explore these career tasters for yourself right now over at LELAIL.com. But before we go, I want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. If the future of our entire planet depends on the success of the green economy, and the green economy's success depends on the hands and minds of these young people, what happens to all of us if we fail to build this bridge today? Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer.